Mi gente, what's up? This is G1.
Peace, this is Rodstarz.
Together we Rebel Diaz.
And we coming at you live with another episode of And You Don't Stop.
This week, Claudia's El Reporte speaks to the issue of Puerto Rican political prisoner Jose Lopez. Rodstarz hits the streets of Humboldt Park to ask the people's opinions about the hashtag Free Jose Lopez.
And on Rooftop Live, we have Chicago's very own Navarro.
For us growing up in Chicago, the Puerto Rican independence community was always part of our lives. There was solidarity amongst many of the movements, and Puerto Rican independence was always a part of that. Claudia this week sits down with Jose Lopez, the brother of Puerto Rican political prisoner Jose Lopez, and talks about updates on his case and about Puerto Rican independence.
Who is Jose Lopez and why has he been incarcerated for 33 years in the United States?
Well, Jose Lopez, first, is my brother, and he was incarcerated 33 years ago, actually, on May 29, 1981. And he was incarcerated and charged with seditious conspiracy. So basically the charge is whenever two or more conspire to overthrow the legitimate authority of the U.S. government through force and violence. That's the general charge. To conspire to overthrow the legitimate authority. We would have to then say, is the authority of the U.S. government in Puerto Rico legitimate? In a case called Belsic versus the people of Puerto Rico of 1922, the U.S. Supreme Court declared Puerto Rico belongs to, but it's not a part of the United States. So, what does that mean? Puerto Rico is a piece of property of the United States. Puerto Rico is not a part. Therefore, the idea of what is the legitimate authority of the U.S. government is called into question, because the very idea that Puerto Rico is not a part of, then how can you be seditious against a government that you're not a part of?
I think the fact that I was charged with seditious conspiracy to overthrow the government of the United States speaks for itself. But the charge in reference to Puerto Ricans has always been used for political purposes. It goes back to 1936. The first time that a group of Puerto Ricans was put in prison was by using the seditious conspiracy charge. And this has always been a strictly political charge used against Puerto Ricans.
If you claim that somebody was killed, you better have the weapon. In this case, there's no weapon and no way to connect my brother to any of the so-called allegations that he is charged with. Every action of the U.S. government has been to isolate him to the degree that he was in a control unit for 12 years where he had no human contact. He's been transferred to many different prisons in the United States to have him as far away as they can from both his family and supporters. He's never been allowed to attend, as other prisoners are allowed to attend their family's funeral. All of this obviously tells us that in many ways his incarceration is a very political incarceration. So it's pretty obvious to us that Oscar has been in prison for 33 years for his advocacy, for his work on behalf of the Puerto Rican independence movement, and also in many ways because Oscar for many years prior to his incarceration and prior to his going underground in 1976 were dedicated to community building projects in the Puerto Rican community in Chicago.
Hay un hombre nuestro, así como nosotros, que su único delito es aspirar a ver un Puerto Rico libre e independiente. Y es el inmenso bandera de esta era,
Where is the campaign to free Jose Lopez right now?
Well, right now it's a very interesting point, right? We've had almost 10 Nobel Peace Prize winners, including Desmond Tutu, call for his release. The intervention of the president of Uruguay, Mujica, his latest visit to President Obama, calling for his release. The United Nations Decolonization Committee calling for his release. I mean, Oscar has become an emblematic figure in Puerto Rico and among Puerto Ricans. At the end of the day, it is a decision which only the President of the United States, in this case, President Obama, he's the only one that can make that decision. And so in many ways, it's up to him. Hopefully, before he leaves office, and obviously after these November elections, we hope that he will make the right decision to free my brother and listen to the generalized, overwhelming demand of the Puerto Rican people, the people of Latin America, and the people of the world who wish for Oscar to be brought home.
Keyshaw Rodstarz coming at you live with another Word on the Streets. This time we're coming to you from El Paseo Boricua in Humboldt Park in Chicago, right on Division Street. This for years has been a stronghold of the Puerto Rican independence movement. As you can see behind me, folks have been fighting for the freedom of Oscar Lopez. The hashtag we're going to talk about today is Free Oscar Lopez. Let's go talk to the community and see what they feel about this and about Puerto Rican independence.
And many world leaders have claimed that his sentence has doesn't fit the crime. You know, it's an over-exaggeration of what he was charged with, which was seditious conspiracy, and that carries a maximum of 20 years, and he's already exceeded that.
It's absolutely true that Oscar Lopez is one of the fundamental forces in bringing Puerto Rican unity to a society that's very divided. So, free Oscar Lopez.
I'm not too much familiar with him, but I've been told that he's a gentleman and a good guy, you know what I'm saying? I'm black and Puerto Rican, and I really don't know too much about my history, but that got something to do with my history, you know what I'm saying?
I think his freedom is imperative, you know, it's a community demand and it's very necessary for Humboldt Park and a worldwide global view of things. Politically, he represents freedom for a lot of different people.
33 years, it's way too long for someone like Oscar to be in prison and at the same time treated unjustly as far as his treatment and what he's been through while incarcerated.
I think Oscar should be free because all his intents are for what he knows and what he believes in, and that goes along with the message of the Puerto Rican Center is live and help live.
And Oscar for us is a hero because Puerto Ricans have a right to determine their own destiny, just like Latin America is creating its own destiny right now. And Hugo Chavez, Nicolás Maduro, they have set an example for Latin America that is good for Puerto Rico, and we hope that Puerto Rico will one day be able to join the Latin American and Caribbean countries as a free independent nation.
Been formerly known as Scheme, as you know me as. I do go by Navarro now. Artist from Chicago, born and raised. Been making music for first project I dropped was back in '09. Manifesto, had the Chicano single, which I dropped. And been making music ever since, man. Just consistently trying to put out dope music, man, for the people, you know what I mean? Proud to be Chicano, man. Chicano. It was a song that I kind of wasn't sure if I should drop at the time because I didn't know if anyone was going to get it, especially like the video. Yeah, I'm a son of immigrants, you know, my parents are Mexicans. Came from Mexico in '78. All my sisters were born out there too. So I was the only one born here, man, and it was always not knowing where you belong, you know what I mean? Because you're here, you say you're Mexican, but then you're Mexican-American, you know? And then you go down to Mexico and you say you're Mexican, they tell you, nah, it is del norte, you know what I mean? You're not from here. So it's like, it's never, and even as a kid, I was, you know, young, 7, 8, you know, and people are telling you this, but it still resonated with me because I was like, what do you mean I'm not from here? Like, my parents are from here, I'm Mexican, you know what I mean? So the dude who chose to play the video on MTV Jams, he liked it, and his parents were from Africa. He was an African, he knows, you know, his parents were from African immigrants, and he liked the song, it resonated with him. So that's when I realized, like, man, this is everybody's story that lives in this country for the most part. You know what I mean? Like, we all come from somewhere else, and our parents brought us here, or our grandparents, or so on and so forth. So that was it, man. I just told the story of not knowing where you belong, but at the same time being proud of being from here and from there, you know, so.
Soy chicano, yeah. soy chicano. Nacido aquí, born here, con sueños de allá, dreaming of there. Yeah, I am a child of this country, the stepson of another. Born a Chicano cause I am a different color. And there's no place I can really call my own. The whites never liked me and my people sent me home. So I am here in the bottomless well, free falling in the race that will never excel. The son of immigrants just following a dream that many follow, but they swallowed in the scheme of things, cause ain't no promising tomorrow. A lot of people hunger for the mighty US dollar. So I didn't deal with my share of fallacies. My parents left at home and all they wanted was a fantasy. So I ain't never been long, cause if I said I was from here, they said I was wrong. And I was proud from what I was made, but it didn't matter cause to them I still